You got problems that you ought to be concerned with. Moolah! You don't know how you're supposed to earn it, or what to do with it, or how to keep it. You're a freak with a dark, shameful secret. But you're not the only one. Face your hidden financial fears with a blast of sun. Now your healing has begun. It's Bad with Money with
Gabe S.
Done.
Hello and welcome to Bad with Money, a show about finances and feelings where we don't talk down to you. This is a little funsies episode. We're going to be talking to Josh Gondelman, and I'm forcing him to do a follow-up episode of Iron Man, which we watched Iron Man 1 and 2. You can go listen to those. And then I promised Iron Man 3, and then I put it way on the back burner. But we're back. Josh, do you want to tell my audience who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi. My name is Josh Gondelman. I'm a writer and comedian. I have a newsletter called That's Marvelous that I write every Monday for free. I do stand-up comedy. I'm on the road a bunch. I've written for television. Hopefully, eventually there will be more television comedy again that I can write for. And then most of the time lately, when I'm home, I've been hanging out with my wife and our pug, who is new and to us. She's a rescue. But is a pug ever really a rescue, or is she kind of a curse against science? But I love her, and she's a monster, and we love her so much.
Yeah, her name's Maggie.
Her name is Maggie. That's right. See, that was the name when she arrived. She was Maggie, but I mostly call her Magoo or Princess Margaret.
Sure, of course. There's nothing funnier than calling a dog by their government name.
And it's like not Margaret. Like her name is not Margaret, but I still call her that.
No, of course. So do you recall your opinion on the Iron Man franchise where we left?
Yeah. I watched Iron Man 1 and then didn't watch Iron Man 2 because I messed up. And I will tell you, I did not care for Iron Man 1. I thought it was, it came out in 2008 and it was kind of this it came out amidst a wave of Obama era optimism and political recession. And it was like, but what if there was a rich guy who really cared and wanted it to be nice? I thought that stunk and I didn't enjoy watching it.
It's really Elon Musk-esque. It's coming to, because this was around the time that people were saying that Tony Stark was Elon Musk. Elon Musk makes an appearance in one of the films. And
in the second one, right?
Mm-hmm. And now it's like deeply harrowing to watch because it's 2013 here in Iron Man 3. And that is also like peak optimism. We open with Tony Stark saying, "We create our own demons." And then he kind of says, "I don't know what that means." And a famous guy said it, and I guess I'm saying it, so I'm famous. So it's actually me now.
It's really fascinating. This feels that because there's only voiceover at the very beginning and very end, which is like, I wonder if someone was like, people have no idea what this movie's about. You got to like tell them at the beginning and the end.
Feels like a Marvel note, no?
Yeah, totally. It feels very notey because it didn't feel like the tone of it felt right for the movie. Him kind of being like, I don't know what that is. Anyway, let's fucking get started with the movie. Damn it. Like it's kind of that proto Deadpool.
I was thinking that.
Yeah, but a little less acerbic, but it is that kind of thing of like, I know that I'm in a movie right now.
Mm-hmm. And at this point, we loved that.
Yeah.
I guess we still do.
And I think it was also, though, it felt like it was a lot of this movie felt like it was kind of tempering the like Tony Stark swagger of the earlier movies, both thematically, right, in him having like panic attacks throughout, thinking about his mental and physical well-being being intertwined, but also in terms of like his kind of macho, suave quips being like undercut a little more, in my recollection.
Yeah, Rebecca Hall's character is really there also to sort of point out, I mean, more so than Pepper, who at least is like his girlfriend. I feel like the Rebecca Hall character is more like, oh my God, shut up. At least when they meet the second time.
Yeah. And the first time too, I think she's a little, I mean, like he's being so over the top the first time. And I was like, I don't think I can watch this movie if this is the vibe the whole time. But it was a flashback to 1999, which I do, and it was New Year's Eve 1999. That's where we start, which I love a Y2K story. I'm excited about the setting, but him being like pre-sobriety, right, is kind of what they're talking about. I don't know if it's explicitly sobriety, but he's like kind of messy and he's being really crude, and I'm just like, this isn't like gonna be fun to watch for 2+ hours.
It is 2+ hours, by the way. So
yeah,
then they play Blue. I'm blue, da ba dee. I don't know how much rights we can get to it, but they play that. What?
No, because we're gonna sing it so faithfully that we get a takedown notice.
I guess that was meant to be like he's in a prison of his own making, and also here's what year it is. I don't know, but anyway.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Shane Black wrote it, directed it, co-wrote, which is wild,
and directed.
It's 1999, Switzerland, New Year's Eve. Also coming hot off The Brutalist, me watching The Brutalist, not that it was out, is Guy Pearce.
I would call this movie a spiritual sequel to The Brutalist. Came out 11 years earlier.
Yes, exactly. And so it's Guy Pearce, who I'm never upset to see.
With bad hair.
Oh yeah, so he's Aldrich Killian. They did like weird skin on him and maybe bad teeth, and he has bad hair and he's walking with a limp. And then a guy comes up, and Yinsen comes up from the guy he was in jail with, or when he was like captive by question mark terrorist group in first movie. And so I guess it was like, whoa, he's met Yinsen before. Then he's with this woman, Maya Hansen, who is a scientist, and she works with plants, but she's also working on a regeneration thing that she shows him, which is that you can regrow the human body. She's showing him on plants, and that it's kind of the thing where it could be used to take the brain and use the brain as like a genetic healing thing. It's called Extremis.
Here's something about this movie. I don't understand anything that happened in it.
Really?
I do understand the general premise, right? Of like, it's like a Wolverine-esque healing factor. Yeah. That she is cultivating in these plants, and it becomes something that they put into humans. Yeah. That's like, I get that. That's kind of the basic premise, where like Jon Favreau, also with hilarious hair at the beginning, kind of snaps a little piece of her test subject out, and she's been like, don't touch it. She doesn't like that. And then he snaps off a little twig, and then you see it like grow back, and you're like, oh, okay. So she's really cooking.
I know. In 1999. And also, what was the joke? There's so many consent jokes. There was like a joke where she was like, she doesn't like that. And then Tony is like, a lot of women say that, or something. Like there was some fucking.
Oh, I totally missed what he said there.
He's being so sexual and such a bitch.
Yeah. He's so horny in the party before this. Like they're at a big party, like it's 1999, and they are walking through, and he's like, this lady I'm about to fucking bang.
Yes.
And like that's the whole first scene. And he's taking, and Aldrich Killian is in the elevator with them, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like gives them the business cards, him and Rebecca Hall, Tony and Rebecca Hall, Maya, and then Tony Stark is like, I'll meet you on the roof in 5 minutes. And then he's like, oh, okay. Fucking dummy.
Yeah, he's really mean to that guy.
And I'm not saying that's not how I talk. That is like the Tony Stark vibe of like the whole first 10 minutes of the movie is just like him going like finger through finger hole for like 10 straight minutes.
Absolutely. So the plant explodes. They kiss, blah, blah, blah. Happy is outside while he fucks, question mark. What is that relationship? Maya, he leaves, he forgets the whole thing. And then I wrote, he can just treat people this way.
They really kind of amp it up and ramp it up, because they're like, this was bad, Tony. Don't do that, Tony.
Yeah. And also, okay, so he can say this stuff and Spider-Man can't be bisexual. Sure. Sorry. Anyway, so we cut to present day. He's been awake for 72 hours. He's making a suit that will attach to him automatically. He says, Jarvis, drop my needle. He's just basically very cool. But also he's been awake for 72
Christmas
hours.
Music.
Yes.
Jarvis is playing some Christmas music. This movie feels like Shane Black's version of Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yes.
It's like Iron Man 3 is a Christmas movie.
It is. So then we meet the Mandarin. He talks about the U.S. slaughtering Indians. That's direct quote, claiming their land. He's hijacked the airwaves. No one can ID a device. Like, what is this? And so he kind of is like this random Bin Laden looking dude.
This is like a recurring Marvel trope, I think, and I guess it's a comic book thing too, but in the movies, it gets really blown out of like bringing in a villain who like makes some good points, but having them go completely obviously too far with things where they're just kind of like, well, there are problems with America, so I can kind of kill whoever I want.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Killmonger's a great example. Ultron makes some points. It's also like, I thought you were going to say, it's this thing of creating villains who, if they're human villains, are like a mix of ethnicities or like a mix of nationalities. Yeah, totally. We don't know what the Mandarin is. He's like named the Mandarin, but then he kind of looks like Bin Laden. But then, like, he maybe is supposed to be some kind of like other Middle Eastern, like it's very unclear.
Well, it's Ben Kingsley, right?
It's Ben Kingsley, is that a wink wink to him having played Gandhi?
Yes. I think that is like kind of funny casting, like intentionally funny casting to play with this, because in Iron Man 1, like you said, he was in, I don't remember whether it was Afghanistan or Pakistan where he was being held, but like the people holding him were like you said, kind of generic off the rack Middle Eastern terrorists, which is like, it is so that the movie can be racist without being politically specific otherwise. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of a playing with that. It felt like, right? It's like an on purpose version of that, as we see later when you're like, oh, this is when we find out who the Mandarin really is. You're like, oh, they were ambiguating this kind of on purpose.
Yeah. He says something like Einstein slept 3 hours a year. So then we see that Rhodey has become, so he was War Machine, but now he's being unveiled as Iron Patriot, which I do think that is like definitely commentary. Then we see all these like people talking about him, the Mandarin, the stuff that was going on with that, like, there's so many things in this movie that I'm like, that would be a much bigger deal. But it's just kind of, I don't know if because we're seeing Tony's version of it, that it's not seen as like so crazy. But like the average person, like if this was going on and I was just like living my life, I'd be like, this is 9/11 nuts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, even more so maybe because he's like taking over all the airwaves to air his videos that he write the Mandarin. Like you're seeing him like commandeering TVs.
Everyone around him is like with guns and stuff, which is very meant to be the Middle East.
And they think it is, right? It's styled that way, like to make it appear that, not to spoil what we learn later in the movie, but it is like it's intentionally trying to. And I think this is kind of some of the more interesting commentary in the movie, is that the Mandarin is styled to like make him feel other to Americans and to play on Iraq War era American fear and Afghanistan War era American fear. And I think that is like kind of an interesting, smart piece of this movie.
Definitely. So he meets up with Rhodey. Rhodey, he says the Mandarin isn't superhero business, it's American business. Some kids come up and want his, signature. Rhodey keeps talking, which I was like, why the fuck are you discussing this in front of the kids? He is not sleeping and he writes "help me" on the kid's drawing. He goes into the suit outside and he thinks that he's dying. He has the suit check his brain or his heart. Like, was he poisoned? No, he was having a good old fashioned panic attack. So that's humanizing.
This is like maybe the beginning. I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but this is like a real trend in the kind of later stages of like action movie sequels and reboots. Yes. And this is like obviously the third Iron Man, but he's already been in the first Avengers movie, right? This is kind of a response to that, where it's like actually, like, we've seen these like swaggering macho dudes and they all need therapy.
Yeah.
And it's like become a device in like, the one that always sticks out to me is the Beverly Hills Cop reboot. Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy, has an adult daughter that he doesn't really have a relationship with anymore. And she's always talking to him about stuff she learned in therapy and why she should be in therapy. And like, I get it. Like, I'm not anti-therapy, but it is such a funny trend in movies where like in the past, it was like, actually the thing that has to happen is like, these strong men have to mostly hold this stuff inside, and like they could let themselves open up a little bit to the ones they love, you know, like John McClane has to be, to bring up Die Hard again, has to be more open about his feelings with his ex-wife because she never knows how he feels about her. And then this is explicitly like, actually everyone should be seeking psychotherapy and psychiatric treatment.
Yeah, hugely. And I think it's also, we talked about this before, where in the comics too, they start giving them human flaws. And so I think it's because they were trying to, especially Tony Stark, trying to make you love him because he's so hateable. And you're like, he's just a cinnamon roll. He's just like a secret softie. So we cut to Stark Industries. Happy is head of security. He's upset that people are not wearing their badges. He wants to get rid of the human and human resources. He thinks he can like streamline that. Pepper says there's been a lot of staff complaints and he's delighted. Then Killian shows up, Aldrich Killian. He's suddenly very hot. He's wearing pants where his ankles are showing. Very hot.
He's styled in a very 2013 handsome businessman way.
Absolutely.
I don't think this would read as hot. Like if he were in this, if they made this movie today, they wouldn't style him quite the same.
They style him like fun. Billie Eilish. Anyway. So he talks to her about extremists. He's been like using it. And he says something about he's been dodging the president's regulations in order to get this, you know, done. And I wrote, literally, what the fuck with these people? Like they think that that's like, oh, we have to be dodging this stuff in order to like do science and get stuff done, which I've spoken to like so many libertarians that feel this way. And it's very like they're pro government, but all because they like love, you know, Trump and whatever, but they're also like anti-government because they're like, well, that's how you make progress with little government or whatever. And we're supposed to just breeze over that.
Right. Where it's like, we should get rid of the EPA and lower the age of consent, but also I should get $400 million in government grants.
Totally. And then he's like, well, also, you know, he wants to, I just think it was a throwaway line where he was like, well, I've been dodging the president's regulations. And it's like, okay.
It's also to show that what he's doing is, it's not sanctioned. He's doing like outlaw science. You know what I mean?
Outlaw science.
Yeah. Which is, it's interesting because what that sounds like it means, right? I think what they're signaling is they've moved away from plants. Like, I feel like maybe this is wrong of me. Maybe this is naive and I don't know how science works, which is true. But I feel like you can kind of do whatever to a ficus and like the FDA isn't going to breathe down your neck.
Right. And then when you move up to rabbits, PETA's like, wait a minute. So he shows Pepper a live feed inside his head where he says DNA is destined to be upgraded. He's going on. And I just wrote, people are starving.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to upgrade human DNA. Also, eugenics, ? Well, we see that he doesn't limp anymore. He clearly used it on himself. And it is like he's hitting on Pepper. She is sort of interested because she had before said like, oh, he always hits on me and it's so annoying. Now she's a little bit like, I think she's just shocked at what he looks like and she's not actually into him. But Happy is like, hello, he's here to steal your girl. Here on this show, I have learned a lot of money lessons the hard way. Mostly I've learned that I need to actually pay attention and look at what I'm doing, which is kind of the hardest part. I learned a lot of this later in life, as you know. And so all of it is pretty intimidating to me. And when I started this show in 2016, it really came down to financial literacy. And April is Financial Literacy Month. So today's episode is sponsored by Acorns. Since there is a whole month reminding you to finally take control of your money, the good news is you don't need all 30 days. Acorns makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future in just 5 minutes. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change. Truly getting started investing in the easiest ways that you can, like getting on the right track and not having to think through what exactly you're investing in. Like, these funds are pretty straightforward. So if you can get involved in doing that with Acorns, you should. And I know it's a scary time for investing, but, you know, one of my guests did just say, sometimes it's good to look at it as a sale. So think about it that way if you want to invest. I'm starting to think of it as maybe the investments are on sale right now, and this is when we get in. Sign up now and join the over 14 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $25 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/badmoney or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/badmoney. So Aldrich says, failure is the fog which we all glimpse triumph. Which, like, feels like that was meant to be quoted as the worst person you know's high school yearbook quote.
And then he's like, my dad said that he didn't make a lot of sense. Like, it's kind of mirroring that Tony voiceover from the beginning, right? Of like, they're both these kind of guys that say these pseudo deep things and then can't explain the meaning of them.
Tony is finally like, he opens up to Pepper because he's like too hung up in the superhero world. He basically sent the suit up to hang out with her while he was working, which is, she knew the whole time that it was the suit. She's extremely annoyed at him. And so finally he's like, wait. Okay, I haven't been okay since the Avengers. Like, aliens, dimensions, like, this is crazy. Like, I'm just a man in a can. Very Batman coded. I guess that makes sense that he would be more wigged out than someone like Doctor Strange, you know? So her moving in is the only thing that's helped him. And, like, you know, it makes him human. He's got PTSD. He's got panic attacks. And I like their relationship, even if he's a nightmare.
I like their relationship too. I think that, like, it makes sense, right? Like, what they like about each other.
It's giving Rick and Chelsea from White Lotus. Not really. That's very extreme.
Ooh.
But so anyway, then she's like, join me in the shower. Once again, Spider-Man is not allowed to be queer, but you're supposed to have kids think people fuck in the shower. Like, no, whatever. He's having nightmares.
Well, it's also weird. It's weird because there's so much there's so much like implied sex, but like zero sex. It cuts out. It is so aphysical that even in the first, like, I didn't know, cutting away from him with Dr. Maya, whoever, like, it was certainly implied that they were going to hook up, but like, they show so little. Like, they're interrupted by this explosion, and then we don't find out until they meet again that they were like, yeah, we had a one night stand.
Right.
And so, like, it's so clear that, like, this is a guy who fucks, but like, they don't even really kiss. It is that part is super weird to me. How, like, Tony Stark is like hypersexual. Like, the way he talks about sex is like how a 14-year-old boy who was trying to convince his friends he's had sex talks about sex. It's so weird that there's nothing shown. Not like, oh, you go to see fucking the Robert Downey Jr.'s nutsack or whatever. But like, I just think there's so little physical chemistry shown. It really relies on kind of euphemistically being like, oh yeah, we had one good night together.
And I think they're relying heavily on Downey Jr.'s natural sex appeal.
Yeah, he is a guy that is always kind of like in this performance exuding, trying to have sex or having just had sex. Clearly very intentional, right? That there's nothing physical shown. Like, it is a movie for children that has to, for some reason, imply like, this guy fucks.
Yeah, and I mean, Spider-Man and Captain America kiss more than he does. Anyway.
I mean, famously, there's that famous Spider-Man kiss. And it's like, that's sexier than anything that happens in this movie for sure.
Correct. So Happy is spying. He's trying to follow this guy. They go to Grauman's Chinese theater. The guy is selling him something that turns you red, this random guy, and they're getting high on it. And he's like, can you regulate? Because he had seen the guy in the lobby. So he's following Aldrich's right-hand man. He makes a joke about the guy being his junkie girlfriend, which I was like, cool, gay stuff. The guy becomes a bomb, blows up, then he regenerates. He blows up the Chinese theater. This would be so much bigger news.
Yeah.
People died.
Yeah. Never mentioned really again.
Whatever. So then they talk about how fortune cookies are an American invention, hollow, full of lies, leaves a bad taste in their mouth. Like they look Chinese and sound Chinese, but they aren't. That's what he's giving little clues. Mm-hmm. He threatens the president. Then he says the Chinese theater, quote unquote, American knockoff. This is quite racist. Mm-hmm. Then he threatens the president, which should be a bigger deal. Well, I guess we're not really seeing people on the street, but I don't know. It's like they later touch on how the fight in Avengers destroyed New York City because I think they felt like they had to because it was like, we gotta address this. Tony Stark is like, when is somebody going to kill this guy? He's like paparazzi'd and he gives out his address to the Mandarin and says, come get me. And then he says, there's no politics here, just good old fashioned revenge. Oh, because Happy got very injured. No Pentagon, just me and you. Then he breaks the guy's phone and says, bill me.
They must know where Tony Stark lives.
He owns his house. Presumably it's public information.
It's just also like, it's a giant house in what, Santa Monica? He
Malibu.
said like kind of Malibu over the, like by the beach. That feels like gettable information when you're like an international terrorist.
It's bravado because this puts everyone at danger. He's an idiot. It's like such a techie house that imagine you're wandering by and you're like, I wonder who lives here. And it's like the most Tony Stark house of all time. Could you find Elon Musk's address? You probably can. Melissa's on it. Tony's trying to figure out the Mandarin's angle, right? He's got a Chinese name, South American war tactics, sounds like a preacher. Notably, we're not saying Middle East. Mm-hmm. Then they realized that people were vaporized. Like the people that died at the Chinese theater were literally vaporized. And then I said, this would be way bigger news, but maybe not in a world that has superheroes and villains. Like I'm talking about our world. Like maybe this just wouldn't be a big deal because they're like, yeah, this is like when New York got exploded. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Even and obviously like this is kind of a different comics world, but in Batman movies, they're always like, the news is always like, what the fuck's up with Batman?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
all the time.
Yeah, this was just like, I mean, I guess this has been normalized in their world. Let's say that. And I guess, you know what? I'm talking like we're so much better. There's school shootings and we forget who died in a week. You know, they're just people outside of Grauman's. It's not like the boat to the Titanic that everyone was glued to.
I'm still with you though. Like, I still think the plot of Avengers, I think would have had ripple effects. Like, I mean, I don't know. You and I were both young people through and after September 11th. And I think people were like always for a long time after, it was like a real psychic presence in American culture where like it would, especially in the months after, would come up in like every conversation.
It still does. It still does.
Yeah.
Because people mark it. Like no one believes I'm 36. So people are like, younger people are like, what was it like to be sentient during that?
Yeah, I mean, it was like a huge, and I don't say this flippantly. I'm not like, oh, people thinking about tragedy. I mean, like it, something of that magnitude is something that like really leaves scars in people's psyche that live through it.
I bet the average person is like, where were you when New York was under attack? Like they probably talk about it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or how did you find out? Yeah, exactly. Or
even this thing, like, well, I guess New York being under attack would be the big comparable thing.
By aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another way that they get around being racist is being like, the villains are aliens. They find out there was this military guy who suicide bombed and he won medals in the army. He was like a regular guy. Then he made a bomb and he went crazy and he blew himself up. 6 people died, including him, who's Chad Davis. someone says he went to hell so he didn't get a shadow. I think maybe that shows up later.
Yeah, the little kid said it. This little kid, very annoying. Could have done without him.
Yeah, wait, we're not there yet. Oh, yeah, no, he goes to Tennessee. He gets stuck in Tennessee.
Wait. You're missing, they come to his house and blow up his house. And Rebecca Hall is also there.
Okay, so
That's huge.
Maya shows up. He does remember her. He's like, please tell me there's not a 12-year-old kid in the car. And then she says he's 13 and no. They fucked, in case you didn't know. And then Pepper comes out. She's more of a girl's girl than she was to Leslie Bibb in Christine Taylor. Ben Stiller's wife, who played the blonde. It doesn't matter. So Pepper's more of a girl's girl in this one. A bomb comes in, blows up the living room, gets the suit on Pepper last minute to protect her. I thought, how did it stick? Because we see him putting magnets in himself. Did he put magnets in Pepper?
Oh, yeah. I wonder if those were like transponders and that was what was like, this is kind of, it's like, I think there is in this movie, they kind of fall on what I would say the wrong side of the line of like how much needs explaining, right?
Yeah.
And I love a movie that doesn't over explain and like weigh itself down with kind of like pseudoscience lore for a world that doesn't exist. Like, I'm fine with that. But this is one of those, like, how the suit responds to him is basically kind of like it does whatever he wants until it doesn't do that.
And maybe it's tied to the arc reactor in some way. Maybe I just don't know enough. Like maybe in the comics or something, it's explained that the arc reactor is part of it. I don't know. But now it operates like a Deus Ex Machina, whatever it is.
I mean, especially at the end. But here it is. He kind of manipulates it in whatever way, which I also find, we'll get to it later. What is it called? The exegesis, the plant DNA that they put in the people that makes them regenerate. Extremists. I find the rules of that are at no point explained in a way. Not the science. Like, who cares about the science? You're like, okay, so it's like the substance, and that you have to respect the balance. And if you don't, you explode. It makes you invincible. And then sometimes you're not invincible. Right. Like, I just don't, like, what is the level of, there's no, like, thought of, like, what is the level of damage that a body can withstand, where, like, things happen to people that have this condition where I'm like, oh, that would surely kill them. And then they're like, psych, they're back. Right. And then other things happen. You're like, oh, I guess that's what does it. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, Chad Davis dies. Maybe they're meant to be like, oh, it's an earlier prototype. I don't really know.
I feel like that, to me, is the thing that kind of throws off the physics of this movie, where you're like, how invincible are these people? There is no weakness to it, right? There's no kryptonite. There's no Death Star.
When they regenerate, their clothes are back.
Like, it's all very strange to me and feels unwieldy, is how I feel about it.
Even
anyway,
the Hulk's clothes get destroyed.
Yeah.
So the suit's not combat ready. They destroy his other suits. He goes under. Suit is filling with water. Then he ends up being able to get himself out. He goes to Tennessee. He's very cold. He apologizes to Pepper, saying he's sorry he had to go find the Mandarin. He's going there to find Chad Davis's mother. But he's like, the suit is broken. So he drags it to a shed. And then we meet this kid who fires a potato gun at him. And he realizes, oh, he's kind of a good mechanic. And so the kid's name is Harley. And Harley shows him the newspaper that says he's dead.
Right. He's not just shows him the newspaper, is already holding the newspaper.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Well, maybe he's like a fan because he's a mechanic, he's a kid mechanic, you know?
Yep. This is something else where I'm like, he's recognized a lot in some places, and then other people seem like completely unaware that he's apparently one of the most famous people on Earth.
I feel like if Cheyenne saw Elon Musk, she might not recognize him.
No, she would.
She would. But like, you know, the app, I don't know. Like, I feel like some of my coworkers would be like, would not really even know.
I think the coolest Tony Stark line in the movie is when Pepper is in the suit, or no, Pepper is not yet in the suit. She's in the house, and Tony is like, save Maya. And Pepper like is kind of hung up on how to proceed because everything is in total chaos, right? And she doesn't is like a little flustered, and he goes, stopping. And then one of maybe the worst line in the movie was when he gets to Tennessee and he's freezing cold and he goes, that's brisk, which I assume is like a winking joke about those Lipton iced tea ads from around that time.
Really? Oh.
I can't think that's brisk, baby.
Yeah, those were popular. It's sort of like it gives a time capsule because it's sort of like him going, what's up?
Yeah. Oh God, I love what's up though.
Oh, I don't know how to explain to younger people what a cultural moment that was. That was
t-shirts,
everything. That was I don't even how would you even explain it? There was a Budweiser commercial with frogs.
No, this was guys, I thought. This was like guys on the phone with each other.
There was one with frogs.
But the frogs said Budweiser.
Oh, I've transposed those.
Maybe they did a was up too, but the was up was like a bunch of guys like calling each other about watching the game or something, and they were all answering the phone going, "What up?" And that was like enough people watched linear television that people were like, that is famous.
I mean, it
now.
was viral.
That's like.
And that is a thing where I'm sure I'll talk about that in the future, and children around me will be like, that doesn't make any sense.
And it's also that's not really culture. That's just a thing that there was. We did a sketch when I was at Jesus and Marrow. The idea was not objectifying two identical women, but my friend Justin Tyler directed it and I had written it. And we our mood board was just the phrase, and twins. That was the editing aesthetic and the kind of folks having fun at a barbecue, drinking a beer attitude that we wanted. And we both that was shorthand that anyone 6 years younger than us would have been we don't stop saying that. That's not a sentence.
This is very zillennial, not zillennial with the Z, zillennial with an X. The kid is like, my dad is gone. Tony goes, that happens. Dads leave. No need to be a pussy about it. We're allowed to say pussy?
That made me laugh too. That did make me laugh.
I like that. I like when adults treat kids like adults. I think that's very funny in movies.
It's very funny. And it's he's so wrong that it's funnier, that it's that's nobody's attitude, is just dads leave, grow up, idiot. It's
shows that he's not around kids a lot, which is funny. He needs the kids' help. Then he says, okay, what's the name of the kid that bullies you in school? And he's like, how did you know that? Which yeah, okay. Everyone. But then he gives him a non-lethal thing that's going to fight his bully, which can't be right. That kid uses it. He's in big trouble. And then I wrote, Iron Man is who I wanted to be as a man, but I think I am actually Spider-Man, a twink. I don't know why I wrote that. This was from when I first did a pass, and I'm not exactly sure. I sort of sometimes like his machismo because before I was a man, I thought he was so cool, which is very 14-year-old boy of me.
That's very funny. And but there are moments where he is cool. He's and not just fake put on cool, where it's oh, this is kind of cool.
So Pepper and Maya drive to look for him. She says she thinks her boss is working for the Mandarin. Who's your boss? Aldrich Killian. And then
fucking obviously.
Because of extremists. Then it's she says they're masterminding the propaganda videos, I think is what she says. Tony tracks down Chad Davis's mother. The experiments killed the kids that were taking it. This woman comes up and she says she's Homeland Security. She's actually one of the people that...
She's from Killian's company, right? Essentially. I don't know why she's showing up there at exactly the same time. They know what happened.
Yeah. I would think she's finding Tony Stark, maybe.
I'll buy it. But she brought the file. She brought the file for that woman. Right. They had talked on the phone and the mother was like, here's a file of everything that happened to my son. And Tony was like, how did you know to bring it? And then the other lady was like, she brought it for me. Okay.
Yeah, which is convenient. So then we are in a news van. Killian is basically taking advantage of disability is what we find out. All the people he's experimented on were veterans or people that had amputations or stuff that they were in a wheelchair or whatever it is. He's sort of like doing disability eugenics, which I think this movie is not really touching on as hard as it hit me when I was watching it.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's true though, but it feels not unintentional, right? It feels like there's not that much to say about it except for like this guy is preying on a cultural pressure and a personal impulse to like want to be healthy, which is not, and it's like the dark side of that in the same way as like Bane is like, wouldn't it be cool if there was income inequality? Watch me blow up the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, I think income equality.
Excuse me. Yes. I'm sorry. Right. Bane is like, wouldn't it be interesting if someone made less money?
Yeah, no, he's like, I want, and then you're
Yes.
kind of like, you're not wrong, but he's another one.
Which is, I mean, it's good. That's like interesting, compelling, thematic stuff.
Mhm.
But I agree with you. This is like, they don't go super deep with it here.
It kind of gives the audience like, well, you would do this too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's kind of blaming the disabled people in a way. I wasn't loving it.
Other than the ones that are like working for this guy, I think they're, these people,
Desperate.
this guy preyed on their pain and it's,
Yeah.
and exploded them.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Chad Davis, it was an accident, but they don't know that.
Right.
So then he's in the news van. We see Adam Pally.
Mm-hmm.
Quick little Adam Pally.
Shout out to Pally.
Okay, I paused when he's breaking into the whatever, and the password Rhodey's password is War Machine Rocks with an X.
With an X. Yeah. He says it out loud, and then they laugh at him. Again, I forget what nation he goes to, but he's like he's like barging in. He thinks he's going to stop the Mandarin, and then the people whose lives he interrupted are laughing at him when he says his password out loud, which I thought was like a funny touch.
Definitely. Maya and Pepper are bonding. Killian shows up. The rocket performed perfectly. It just landed on the wrong planet. And I forget who said that.
I don't remember that at all.
So he attributes it to Werner von Braun, which is when the V2 hit London. It's about how he's a German scientist. He led the team that developed the V2
Right.
rocket for the Nazis during World War II. Sort of giving Oppenheimer.
Did Maya say this?
No, Maya. It's Maya who says it.
I really liked the sequence where he's handcuffed. The fake federal agent handcuffs him and he's like running away while handcuffed. And he like her extremist heat melts his handcuffs when he's like strangling her. And then he puts the dog tags in the microwave and they explode. I'm like, that's kind of a fun, less superhero-y action sequence, and that's like the kind of shit I'm very into. Like the physics of it make just enough sense, and like you see the motion of like, okay, now he's pouring the cooking oil and it's on fire from all this heat, and like that kind of stuff to me is fun to watch and works and is interesting.
It proves that he's actually a genius
Mhm.
and it's not the suit. I was like the ego of scientists where they like have to have military contracts. And it's like, well, that's exactly what we used to do. And I wrote, you shouldn't.
And still now. That's like,
I know.
another great joke. Adam Pally shows Tony Stark the Tony Stark tattoo that he has. And it's like a little like, there's a Tony Stark joke about what the tattoo looks like or who it looks like. And then Adam Pally goes, I had them do it off a doll I made. So it's not, obviously it's not perfect. And it's like, that's such a good joke.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that was Adam Pally himself.
It is very
but I don't
Pally.
wanna-
But like Shane
Right?
Black's a funny writer as well.
He is. And I like when a random comedian shows up.
Yeah, same. I always love that.
I think in Winter Soldier, DC Pearson is the Apple Store guy.
Yep.
And famously, Chris Gethard was cut out of a Marvel movie.
Oh, that's funny. Zach Cherry is in one of the Spider-Man movies, right?
Yes. So we think that Maya was using Pepper to get to Stark. We
Yep.
get that, which I knew was a ploy, but it was like, I could see someone being like, no,
Yeah.
So Iron Patriot is like the bad guy. He's trying to find the bad guy. He's hidden among.
It's wait. This is another thing that doesn't make sense though. Like if Maya is doing this, she's double crossing Pepper and Tony. Like she shows up at the house, and as they're blowing up Tony's house, like it just feels like why was she going off book at the moment that they're trying to blow up this guy's house. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
it just is like, I get, oh, this is a double cross, but then to what end? Why not just go with the official plan, which is blow up his house?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know if she was there on purpose or maybe it was
they
just
just
like,
hadn't talked about it. Like, that's fine.
or she didn't know. Yeah, she didn't know. Or they told her to go there, but she didn't know that they were just going to sacrifice her.
Right. But then that's wild that she's then at the end of this sequence back working for him of her own volition after they
Right.
blew her up. Like, that couldn't have been the plan.
Right. Yeah, she wasn't in on it. So anyway,
Right.
They say that the bad guy's hidden among the Pakistani women. It makes a joke about cheaply made sportswear. And then he says something like, you're free if you weren't already before, because they're in burqas. Oh my God. Like, and also the idea that the bad guy's hiding among them and then the bad guy is hiding among them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very like, I don't know. It's very like what Americans already think is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't love it. Well, he had to scare them because in my mind, it's like, oh, they got out. They're fine. But like, you did traumatize them.
But he came to, right. But he came, but they're laughing at him. You know what I mean? Like, I think I minded that less, especially because what we're going to find out later, not to jump too far ahead again, is that like all of this is a setup by the Mandarin to play on American fears, right? Like, these people are not, these people, like these women are not villains and they're not associated with villains.
Well, yeah.
And he's being directed to them as a misdirect. And he was just like, oh, of course, Pakistan is where this bad guy is, even though it's like being done on a soundstage in Miami is what we come to find out soon, which is like, we're just before there.
I know. And I think it is, playing on, you're right. That's what gets Iron Man, or that's what gets Iron Patriot there, is that false American idea.
Yeah. And they like, obviously they misdirected him on purpose. And he was like, oh, I'm there. And then it took like, I think, a sensibly long time for the government to be like, oh, that's not where the Mandarin is. And it's like, to me, this is kind of, it's really in conversation with the first Iron Man movie, in that it's not just, oh, unnamed extremist sect in the Middle East is capturing Tony Stark and holding him there and making him build weapons for them. This is like, Americans are so afraid of that they are inclined, that their belief in people in the Middle East as terrorists is strong enough to like transcend reality and like not have people like really investigate what's going on.
100%, which actually becomes clear towards the end.
Yeah,
now.
Totally.
Tony has another panic attack and the kid is like, you're a mechanic. Why don't you build something? And then Tony Stark goes to load.
And now he's disguised because for some reason he's not allowed to buy hardware. He's like wearing like his hood over his head.
Know anything about true crime? It's the going to the hardware store in a hoodie and a hat that really gets
very
you.
Suspicious. It's like when you see a celebrity like man usually wearing a hat like way down over his eyebrows, and you're like, that's only how famous people wear hats.
Or if someone comes into my store and they have their sunglasses on, I'm like, you're just making yourself a target.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we come to find out that the Mandarin is Trevor Slattery, an actor. It's Ben Kingsley. The Mandarin isn't real. He's a custom-made terrorist in order to fit Western iconography. They give him the speech of a serial killer. He's partying with some girls in Miami. He offers the girls, which is like, whatever, fine. Women are just in bikinis.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even get to see Downey Jr. Or do we see him shirtless in this?
I don't know.
Well, it doesn't matter. He says the guns are fake. Everyone is shocked by this. They needed someone to take credit for the accidental explosions, which Killian is like, that actually makes sense. Like, we needed, like, the science isn't really working out. Like, we're going to have accidents. Let's blame it on a terrorist. That's actually extremely smart.
Yeah.
It is giving like conspiracy theorists living in the woods.
Totally.
But it is, sometimes those are real.
Yeah.
The CIA was giving crack to Black communities. Like sometimes that shit is real.
Yeah.
It's movie magic.
Right. The move bombing happened. in Philadelphia, right? So this is like it is not wild that the government would, I mean, this isn't the government. This is just a guy, but like make people explode and then cover it up. Yeah. Anyway,
well,
sorry.
a little bit, you find out it's the government
In a way that, again, is not explained even for a second.
Yep. So Maya turns out actually helping. Can you believe? They have Tony tied up. They make some jokes about him being tied up to a bed. She has his fix on his old badge. Oh. So the badge that he was wearing that says, "You already know who I am," that he was wearing at the party in Switzerland, that he had written his fix for extremists on the back of it.
Yes.
She kept it. Maya is sort of being convinced. I think Killian comes back and Maya is sort of convinced like, oh, Tony has no soul. You know, they prey on desperation. And then they're like, anonymity is really important. Killian is anonymous.
Yeah.
But he's got the Mandarin acting as like the front, which like invokes bin Laden, gives people a target so they can like so that he can own the war on terror and create supply and demand. It's very much giving, we have to invade Afghanistan. We have to invade Iran, even though we don't have any proof.
I still kind of didn't understand how he was controlling supply and demand. Like, what's the end game of this?
Money?
There's plenty of people. I don't know. It just feels like his relationship with the government and his financial relationship, even though it's clear that it becomes more clear that he has like operatives inside the government. I'm just kind of like, what's the pipeline here? It's just like he creates more terrorism so that more people need the extremists for recovery, or he builds super soldiers who can't be killed. Like it just felt very murky to me. And maybe I zoned out for a minute, but I remember him being like, I control the war on terror. And I was like, I don't know what that means. It sounds compelling, but I don't know what it means. Although I did love the joke where they called Ben Kingsley's character Sir Llorens Oblivier.
That is very funny. Yeah, I think that he is creating terrorism for all those reasons you're saying.
Yeah.
And also it's the ego of the scientists, which they talk earlier about, and he's getting government contracts to like do all of this.
Sure.
So he's creating the terrorism that then he can use to profit, which it is. It's giving Iraq war for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I get like the feel of it and the kind of like WMDs. I get that kind of escalating this, but it just never I wish that he had kind of I wish that he'd laid it out in a way that felt more explicit and less kind of evocative.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put that. Yeah,
this is his James Bond villain moment of like, you're tied up and I'm going to reveal my plan. And I think if I was Tony Stark, I'd be like, wait a minute, but like, who are you? Who's funding you? And like, what are you like? What do you think this product is? Like, is it to help people recover? Is it to like, again, to make the military stronger and more lethal?
They do mention super soldiers for sure.
Right. That certainly comes up. Okay, there's like always a market for super soldiers. You don't have to create the war on terror to have super soldiers.
And it absolves maybe the government a little bit in our eyes. Like, yeah. But I don't know. Like, well, I think, yeah, he does need sort of a more direct, this is how this is going to go.
Yeah.
But I think they're murky because it's 2013 and you can fill in the blanks. It's scarier if each person in the audience thinks of what would be the scariest to them.
But even if he was like, I need the world to be in total chaos so that the government keeps paying me to create these super soldiers so I can keep funding this science that will eventually save the world from all this violence. Like something that just like, because there's just no, I don't know. This character I found to be not super compelling outside of the fake character of the Mandarin, which I was like, oh, that's funny and interesting.
Doesn't have this je ne sais quoi that Thanos had.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or like, even we were talking about Killmonger and Bane, where you just kind of go like, oh, this is this guy's motivation. And like, even the description of him that was like, oh, this is like what happened before a scientist turned into a Nazi. And you're still like, well, then I have no sympathy for that guy.
Right.
This is kind of where the movie started to lose me when he like reveals the plan. And I was just kind of like, wait a minute, I'm not going to rewind this to watch again, but like, I shouldn't have to.
So Pepper's put on extremists. Maya threatens to kill herself. and sides with Tony. Killian shoots her.
Yep.
And then I wrote Elon because you're a maniac. No, I'm a visionary, but I do own a maniac. And that's Elon and Trump.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. But Elon is also a maniac. And this guy is also, it's I'm self-aware, but like, yeah, great line. I was like, you're more maniac than anyone that you're talking about, though.
Right. Then we find out that the vice president is involved because he wants it for his paralyzed daughter.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Wait. Also, Don Cheadle wears a polo shirt in the Iron Patriot suit, which made me laugh.
That is pretty funny.
They say the vice president is mixed up in this, and Tony and what's his name, Iron Patriot, assume that they mean the vice president is at risk. So they call the vice president and they go, here's the plan. And the vice president goes, we'll have our best men on it. We can be in the sky to protect the president in 30 seconds. And then obviously what the guy meant was, or what whoever told them that meant was, the vice president is one of the bad guys and he's in on this.
Yes.
And so he hangs up his phone and like gives it to the Secret Service member assigned to him. And is just like, I don't care about this. This is, I want this to happen.
Yes. It's Christmas. So we're reminded that it's Christmas. And then they use Iron Patriot as a Trojan horse to get to the president, who is on Air Force One.
Yes.
Also, the daughter played by Jenna Ortega.
Oh, I like missed that.
I mean, she doesn't talk. It's like a cameo. So he starts saving all the people from the airplane, which is one of my favorite scenes, I think.
I didn't realize that the children's game Barrel of Monkeys had such a lingering cultural resonance, but because he calls it out specifically, he's like, remember that game Barrel of Monkeys? And I feel like at least one person would be like, fucking dude.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was like a really fun sequence and like a visually creative sequence that I was like, this is fun. We get towards the end and it starts to get into that Marvel thing of there's less visual logic to what you're seeing, and like things are happening so fast and like you're just kind of like, oh, it's like CG fighting with CG. But I think until this point, there's a lot of like fun, interesting, well-considered action and adventure sequences.
Absolutely. And this is another example. Like he has the suit, but this is another example of Tony's genius. Like Tony's thinking. He thinks fast. His thinking is what really helps here. The suit is keeping them alive, but like the way that he thinks in a crisis it's interesting again because that's what it's doing.
Yep.
Piper saves the day is what I wrote.
Yep. She does.
Which is cool. I remember seeing that and being like, oh, that's fun.
Right. Does she get back in the suit at the end? Right.
I remember, I think I talked about this before, but she did a interview maybe with Downey Jr. They're like, so you were in Iron Man 3. And she was like, I was.
She always forgets, which I appreciate. But it's also like, why are you in these movies then? Like,
it's also funny because she's like, I just imagine her using Extremis in Goop.
Yep. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the substance.
Put the Extremis in your hoo-ha.
Yeah.
It is the substance.
Or it's very reminiscent of it is your responsibility to control this thing that like you shouldn't have access to.
100%. And I remember being like, oh, that's cool. Also, she's ripped.
Yeah, she's really shredded. Oh, she hits the bad guy with a stick. That's what she did. She got a big ass stick. That was really violent. Yeah. Very funny line. Oh, and then Tony has activated house party protocol where all the suits from his house fly to where he is and do the fighting. And this is where it starts. I mean, again, this sequence kind of loses me a little bit. I'm like, who's fighting what? If all these guys have extremists, what is their threshold for pain? It seems like infinite until it's not. Like, how strong are these suits? It just feels like there was no relative scale for that stuff that was applied. And so this whole thing feels kind of like, I don't know, I guess you'll tell me who won at the end and why.
Yeah, it's a Marvel specialty.
Yes, which it's some of my least favorite stuff of these movies is when the action gets so like camera whipping around, animated suit fighting guy, don't know what's happening. And it's like, give me those scenes earlier where like Tony Stark is fighting the lady with extremists and you see like, okay, her body is warm enough to like melt through those handcuffs. And then, oh, this explosion is enough to like disintegrate her. And you're like, okay,
This is for some viewer other than us.
Yeah, I think that, but I love dumb action shit. I love to watch
But I
Jason
like it.
Statham beat the hell out of 30 guys in a
Yeah,
row.
but that's a person. Like,
Yes.
I love John Wick because it's a guy.
Yes.
He has a mission that's clear, and he's doing kills in really interesting ways. That's why I love Dev Patel and Monkey Man.
Yes. And I don't even mind, okay, Tony Stark is in the suit now and he's stronger and he can fly. Because like we were saying, that the barrel of monkeys rescuing the 13 people that were falling out of the exploded plane is fun. It's exciting, and more or less that he's going to pull it off. But there's an interesting visual logic to this problem solving that both, like you said, explains a little bit about the character and gives you, the viewer, something fun and exciting to see that tracks enough. You're like, uh-oh, this one person, they missed their hand, so they're holding onto their foot now. And you're like, this all adds texture to it, instead of just being kind of a blur. And so it's I am kind of a hater of this kind of movie to begin with, but I think I do have a tolerance for it. It's not a snob thing. It's just once it gets to this point of all this wild swirling action, I just don't have anything to grasp onto, and it's not as fun.
Yeah, I agree. Mostly I think about how much fun the stunt was to do. I get taken out of it where I'm like, oh my God, how fun. And then when it's Iron Man fighting, I'm like, that's not Robert Downey Jr. Yeah. Anyway, so then he blows up all his suits, clean slate protocol. And then we get back to his voiceover, as we said, where he says, we create our own demons, meaning I guess we made up a terrorist and then we created a terrorist.
He's not, he did not create his own demons. His internal demons were clearly have root causes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this is why I was having the panic attacks, because I created a demon that was on my back. And it's like, my brother in Christ, go to therapy.
Yeah. Right. You didn't make this happen. This is a manifestation of your obvious mental illness.
So then he gives the kid a lab.
Yeah.
Because we got to think he's a very good guy.
Yep.
And Harley actually comes back.
I was going to say, that feels like he's going to come back in the future as a helper or an enemy at some point.
I don't think does until he's at Tony's funeral. Sorry for the spoiler, but he shows up at Tony's funeral, and in Endgame, a lot of people were like, who is that? Because again, the kid has grown up. So he's he's in his 20s or so. I don't know. He's a teenager. So people were like, who is that? And all the people like me were like, that's Harley. Yeah. But he does go to Tony's funeral. So that was a nice little touch.
I have to watch Endgame soon for a different podcast.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm worried I'm going to be lost. I proposed it. I gave them a list and they were like, they picked Endgame. It wasn't all superhero movies, but I'm kind of not looking forward to it because I've missed so much of the interstitial stuff. I really did enjoy the original Avengers. As much as I don't understand what was happening in this movie, I mostly had fun. I was like, this is fun. They're doing fun things. It is weirdly violent for a movie that is so tiptoes around sexuality so gingerly. And then it just has people getting shot in the chest, which is such an the violence kind of is realer than, it's not all cartoony. And it's oh, interesting. There's no blood really, but it's real menacing violence, which is such especially during this period of more active and war with Americans deployed fighting, right? It felt like there was just this violence in film was oh yeah, violence is for kids, sex is for grown-ups.
Yeah. Yes. I also think that if you show blood, you get a higher, it was PG-13, but if you show blood, it's R or something. This is what takes me out of it, that I know things.
Oh, and then Jon Favreau is going to be okay.
Yes. And that's what we were all waiting for.
But Tony, I think that's a nice moment where he takes the shrapnel. He has the shrapnel and the arc reactor, right, surgically removed from his chest. And then he throws it into the sea or towards the sea. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of an elegant ending to this part of the Tony Stark story. He doesn't have to be Iron Man. He doesn't have to be tinkering with these things to keep himself safe. He can live his life, which is kind of a therapy lesson made physical, right?
Yeah. Well, this concludes our Iron Man series on ethical billionaires as a concept.
Which I'm sorry, I keep jumping in, but this was much less about that, and I enjoyed it more because of that. Because I thought
100%.
Iron Man 1 was really trying to like say something about the super rich and they're like being torn to doing good for society and doing evil against society. And like, I just don't buy it, especially at this point in history, especially with this character. But then Iron Man 3 was just kind of like scientist versus scientist. Okay,
Which
cool.
That's when Marvel's at its best, I think. So anyway, thank you so much for being here and for putting up with this. I guess you did enjoy it though.
I had fun. Yeah.
Where can people find you, find more about you?
Subscribe to my newsletter, joshgondelman.substack.com for the time being. Go to joshgondelman.com for tour dates. I host a show called Frankenstein's Baby at Union Hall. It's the first and third Monday of the month. I'm usually there the third Monday, but sometimes hanging out the first Monday too. And I'm going to be, I think, probably on the road a little bit more soon coming up. And I have a new stand-up special that should be out pretty soon, but like we're still finalizing the details. So that's exciting. So follow the newsletter, follow me on Instagram and Blue Sky and TikTok, I guess. Fucking, I don't know. I'll just keep posting there till I die or they invent a new one.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Gabe.
Bad with Money with Gabriel S. Dunn is a production of Noted Bisexual, produced by Melisa D. Monts and Diamond MPrint Productions. Edited by Diane Kang, post-production sound by Coco Llorens, production assistance by Melanie D. Watson, and music by Mike Kaplan, Zach Sherwin, and Jack Dolgen, sung by Sam Barbera. Thank you, love you, bye!